What's up, guys? Want to do a video on risk and how we look at the different aspects of risk. Most people just focus on due diligence, but there are three other things that we like to focus on when we're looking at a deal, and the due diligence is just one of those. So obviously, due diligence plays a huge part in whether we're going to close a deal. But before you get to due diligence, there's some things that you can be doing to make sure that the deals that you're even considering, because if you waste a lot of time doing due diligence on a deal and it turns out that it's not the right deal, then that's time that you could have put into a business that was going to turn into a closing. So what are these other three things? Number one is being able to maintain and create a great relationship with the seller. I learned this lesson when I was 26 on a deal where we had some really aggressive terms because I really didn't want the business, and the owner ended up sabotaging the business at the closing. So that's something that is a risk that is beyond any due diligence that you can kind of do to protect yourself in a deal. If you don't, and that's obviously an extreme, but if you don't have a good relationship with the seller, it may not be that they sabotage the business. It could be that they just don't go the extra mile to treat you well as a potential buyer. For me, in that deal, that was a very, very valuable lesson. And it's something that even shifted my strategy in a lot of ways where, I talk a bit about Warren Buffett's first business, where he bought a business that he knew was on the way to basically going out of business, but he knew he could make some money off of it. And this was business I didn't really want the company. I didn't want to buy it. And instead of just walking away from it, I threw out an offer that initially was insulting, and it was turned down immediately. And then when they came back and wanted to sell again, I lowered it to an even lower offer because I realized I wanted it even less than I wanted before. And it just wasn't a deal that was one that I was excited to get in and run. And he was in a situation where he basically had to accept the offer. And it's one of the things that I do when I'm closing a deal now is I will sometimes, if I get a hint even that the seller isn't happy with the deal that we're closing together, I will just straight up ask them. It's like, I just want to make sure that you're happy with the deal, because we don't have to close this. You don't have to sell to me. I don't have to buy. We should both be thrilled with the business transaction in order for us both to sign. It doesn't make sense for us to sign something and you be upset. There are plenty of deals out there, and there are plenty of other business buyers that you can go and close the right deal for you. So I'll literally just ask them to tell me if they're happy or not. And sometimes even if they're not happy, them having to tell me that they're happy in order to close the deal can help make sure that we're both on the same page and we're both going to be a team moving forward. The other thing is, as a skill set, I think that being able to build relationships is crucial. I know in working with clients that early on, I didn't really pay attention to a person's ability to be personable with me and build a good relationship and be able to maintain a positive vibe and that kind of thing. And what ends up happening with some people, especially in today's day and age, where we're kind of taught that you can just sit behind a computer screen and make money and not have to deal with people and know how to win over hearts and influence and all of that. And you can end up in a situation where people just feel like, hey, like, I don't have to be able to impress a seller. I don't need them to want to sell the business to me. I'm just going to go in there and railroad them. They're going to have to sell the business to me. And what we create in pretty much every deal that we do is a relationship where the seller feels like, I don't want to sell this to anybody else but you. We just have to get the financial terms to a point where it makes sense. Because if it's somewhat competitive, I'm going to sell to you as opposed to anyone else. And what that takes is the ability to build relationships, create rapport in a very quick manner. And it's gotten to the point now where if I'm on the phone with somebody and they just aren't good at creating rapport, I don't take them as a client, because this isn't a space where you can not have that ability. You can do trading without that. You can sit behind a computer and build a e-commerce business, a FBA. Like, there are a lot of things that you can do nowadays without having to have that ability. And it doesn't mean that you're some super outgoing, or you can be an introvert. I'm pretty much an introvert. Like, my favorite thing is sitting down, reading a book, that kind of thing, and that's how I recharge. But so you don't have to be extroverted, but you do have to be able to create that rapport. And it sounds interesting, but it is one of the ways to really decrease risk in a deal. And I've just seen it over the years where someone isn't able to build rapport with a service provider. We had a deal where it's probably a decade ago, but a guy bought a business, and he ended up in a situation where the agency that he worked with didn't want to work with him. And so they ended up basically canceling the relationship, and they were in charge of all the traffic that was generated for that business. So that's one of those crucial things that a lot of people overlook, is being able to build rapport with the seller. The other part is obviously deal structure. And it still ties into being able to build rapport. So if you're somebody who is able to build rapport with a seller, you're also going to be able to get a deal structure that is in your favor. When you're paying all cash for a business, or paying too much money up front for the business, and you don't have that protection on the downside, then that creates a situation where you are taking a lot more risk than is necessary. Every transaction that we do, we want the seller to take just as much risk in the deal as we're taking, and that's how we protect ourselves. And then the last factor is who's going to run the business. Sometimes we get so focused on, okay, what's the deal? How much? What multiple am I buying it at? Did it meet all the due diligence checklists that we take things through, that we forget that it takes somebody to run that business. And if you've got a plan and the people in place to hopefully grow it, and all right, we should be able to double, triple, quadruple this deal, then even if you don't, you're not in a situation where you're losing 20% and that impacts profit by 50%, and you start to really get in trouble when you take over the business if you don't have that plan for growth. So being able to hit the ground running and then grow that business and have a specific plan to grow it is just as important as due diligence, rapport, creating the right deal structure on that deal. So those are the factors that I would keep in mind when you're looking at any deal that you come across right now. Be sure to subscribe below. And if you have any other things that you would add to this list, let me know in the comments.